All right, so you're blasting through these streets in your girl's South Central certified ghetto gunship, and something smells hot, kind of burning smell, like oil. Maybe when you park it up, you get a little bit of light smoke coming out from under the hood. Well, after 10 years and 165,000 miles, seals just ain't sealing no more, are they? And this thing needs a valve cover gasket. But easy peasy, we're going to take care of that right now. Step back, Dodge Charger. This is the real king of the hood. All right, so the first thing you got to do is get the engine cover off, because new cars, they got those covers. Nissan Altima here happens to have 3 bolts in it, so some pop off. This one, 3 little 10mm bolts, and it pops off. You get it out of the way. Now, how do I know my valve cover's leaking? Well, first, the car's old. Yeah, it is. It's 10 years old. I can't believe I had it that long. But then, you smell oil every now and then when it's real hot. You get out here and you look, and it's got all this gunk caked up on it. Look at that. Ew, gross. Now, this valve cover's got a lot of shit attached to it, but don't let that deter you, because it's, just how all cars are made nowadays. It's okay, because it's still just a valve cover with a valve cover gasket. You just got to take all the little stuff off of it. So we'll get to the obvious stuff first, being the coil pack harness. Get that out of the way, and the cam position sensor harnesses. Pop those out. Pop the what did I say those things? Coil packs. Pop those coil packs out of there. We'll get them out, and then we'll move on to that motor mount bracket there. Don't forget your breather hoses. It's a shame that these cars get the reputation that they do. You know what I'm talking about. The big Ultimate Energy. Because these cars, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, these cars are way, way better than I think anybody is willing to give them credit for. I bought this car 10 years ago, brand spanking and new, and my family's grown up in this car. It's got 165,000 miles on it. We've had it for 10 years. This car has been all over the Southeast. I mean, just everywhere. Multiple trips to Florida, up to Louisville, Kentucky, just Gatlinburg several times. We've been all over the place in this car, and it's never broken down. I do oil changes religiously, rotate the tires. I've had to put a couple of sets of brakes on it, and at 140,000 miles, I put a new belt on it. Not because it broke, but because I was like, that's got 140,000 miles on it. We might as well go ahead and change it. I've only changed the transmission fluid one time. Let me tell you, these CVTs, that makes a difference. When I changed that transmission fluid, you could tell a major difference in the way the car drove. So don't be scared of them. Just, do the maintenance like you ought to. And, going back to me saying that these cars are way more reliable than what people give them credit for, that's why I say it's the real king of the hood. That's why you see these things all over the place, beat to death and just still out there just bombing all over the place. It's because they could take it, man. All right, before we get into what I'm going to go after next, just go ahead, pull your coolant reservoir out. It's 1 10mm bolt, and then knock out the 18mm nut on top of this bracket and the 18mm bolt in the side of this bracket. Make sure that you've got the engine supported, because this is the only thing that holds the engine on this side of the car. Do that before you take the hardware out of these, because if you try to take these bolts off, well, everything wants to move. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so the things I said I needed to do, I did. Now we've got this motor mount and bracket assembly here that covers part of the valve cover, keeping me from getting to the hardware and from getting it off. Before I go just completely taking this out of the car, what I'm hoping is that I can knock these bolts out and give this just a little bit of flexibility that I can move it out of the way and get to what I need to get to there.
Wrong.
These 4 right here are the seldom used 16mm bolts. So I'll knock those out and see what I get. All right, so taking a look at this, I knocked these 3 bolts out of the top of this bracket. Then I went for the 4th one, and it was really, really hard, really, really tight. And then I stopped. And come to find out, looking around, I'm pretty sure that's the only mount on this side of the car, which means that if I knock this bolt out, it's under a lot of tension right now, the engine goes, and we don't want that. So it gets a little bit trickier. You got to put a jack under the oil pan. Suggestion, don't just put your jack under the oil pan. Put a little piece of wood between, the jack and the oil pan so you don't damage it. And there we go. It's a long one. All right. Well, that's a whole engine loose now. All right. I'm just moving the engine. Oh, heard it crack. There we go. Now there's a lot of crap built up on this thing. Be careful. It might have been a good idea before I did this to clean it off, just so that stuff doesn't fall down in your valve train. All right, and there we go. QR25 valve train. All right, yep. Those are camshafts. There's an old gasket still hanging out. Get out there, you. Okay, I am going to go around and wipe down the edges of this just to get any excess debris up. One thing to note is that in the corners, there's a little bit of silicone. So I'm going to break out my RTV gray and do the same thing when I put the new one on. Look at how clean that engine is. I change the oil every 5,000 miles, and I use Castrol Edge full synthetic 0W20, or is it 5W20 high mileage? That's 165,000 miles, and there's nothing built up inside of that engine. Okay, all right, pretty cool here. I've got everything cleaned up there. I got this valve cover gasket by Molly. Yeah, I got this valve cover gasket and from Rock Auto, and it come with silicone, so I don't even got to use mine. So I'm going to get this fitted into the valve cover and put it on. All right, new gasket is all pressed into the channel there on the valve cover. As cool as this kit is with the silicone, it did not come with the spark plug tube seals. However, these are fine. Everything looks good and clean in there. So I'm going to slap it back on there. Of course, going to put some silicone back in the spots that I cleaned it off of in the four corners. All right, there it is. I got a little bit of silicone in all four corners. Certainly not as beautiful as the engine assembly plant in Deckard, Tennessee did it, but I believe it will be sufficient for what we've got. Now, it's just kind of carefully slip that on there, make sure I'm not knocking the gasket out of the channel, and boop. Oh, and it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it, I suppose. Before you put the valve cover on there, make sure stuff didn't fall in there. Like this 10-year-old wire harness loom kind of coming undone, and there were bits in there. So I had to clean that out. Now, just put it back together. All right, we've got the main bracket back on. However, even though we've got a jack under the engine, when you take it all loose, everything shifts. So this is now here, and this is here. So I'm going to have to kind of manhandle the engine while we work on getting that bolt to line up with that hole and get it started. If you're feeling froggy while you're here, you're already halfway there, change those motor mounts. I'm not, but you could. All right, let's see. Oh, okay. Engine's a little higher than it needs to be, so just a little bit. Whoop. Let's see how that is. Oh gosh. Almost, but not quite. Drop her down just a tickle more. I mean, when I say a tickle, I mean like I'm barely letting the engine move at all. Oh. Probably should have tickled it a couple of times. Oh, come on in there. Just a hair more. All right. What's that, like 2 threads? Perfect. All right. I'm not going to use power tools to get this started. It's a little rough by hand, but if you go after it with an impact, you're going to tear that up. All right, finish it up with power tools because I'm lazy. Get it good and tight. There we go. That's back on. All right. Now we can wiggle jiggle this other piece of mount back in there past these AC lines. I'll drop the engine. Well, we'll let the engine sit on itself, I guess, for that. Oh, yeah. There we go. Whole car's going down. How about that? Now I'm going to lift the engine back up because there's a big old gap there. I'm going to put these bolts in first. Don't go putting this nut on the mount here. Get everything secure to the engine first. That ain't going nowhere. Now all left to do is, button up all the little finicky stuff we already took off in the first place. And all buttoned up, throw that engine cover back on. Voila. All right, well, that was a little bit more work than some of the old school stuff, but hey, sometimes you just got to get in there and get after it. And if you've got a jack and a basic set of hand tools, you can take care of this on your car too. Hey, sometimes you just got to get in there and do it the hard way. Thanks for watching.